Hello and welcome back to another episode of Before You Buy. Things you should bear in mind before you buy into any NAS brand. Today I want to talk about Asustor, a brand that I have talked about on this channel much more over the last few years. They've got some great Intel powered solutions. They were one of the first brands out there to bring 2.5 GBE to market, and have even got combined 2.5 and 10 GBE solutions in their Lockastor series. We talked about Nimbustor, we talked about Lockastor, and we talked about some of the older generation as well. But they're not a brand for everyone. So as much as I like buying Asustor products, and as much as I like to compare them with QNAP and Synology and TerraMaster and all the different NAS brands that we talk about here on the channel, it is worth highlighting that, again, there's a lot of things you need to know about any brand before you start investing your hard-earned money. And given that these are devices, be they Asustor or any brand, that are going to restore probably the most important data to you, your wedding photos, your pictures of your family, your company data, your clients and more, there's things you need to know about any brand before you proceed. Let's talk about the 5 things that you need to know about Asustor before you invest in them. Number 1, there's a lot of fluffy apps. It's something that I've talked about on the channel before when talking about Asustor and a lot of their new products. And it, thankfully is something they are working on resolving more and more. And we are seeing the improvement in real time. But there's still a lot of kind of fluffy, unnecessary third-party applications on their platform known as ADM that it's just annoying to see. It kind of cheapens the brand a little bit, and if you go to the App Center, they are very present, and a lot more of them in the Hdmi side of things. They've got their dedicated parallel Hdmi portal, but there's still no avoiding that seeing a lot of kind of third-party freeware kind of applications getting thrown around without any sense of refinement is super annoying, and it kind of makes you feel like the brand kind of doesn't really have a quality control to bash out that many applications. And as I say, this is something they're working on right now, and maybe this is a completely moot point by the time you're watching this video. So you check out their live ADM demo. Do check that out as well. The second thing you should probably know about them is, although they do have a range of first-party applications readily available that their own teams have worked on for mobile, iOS, Android, as well as client applications for desktop, and many applications available to be downloaded from their own App Center, there's a lot of kind of a degree, I would say, of improvement in third-party apps. They do have their own surveillance apps, and they've got their own backup applications as well. But it becomes very apparent when you go in and when you look into their applications that a lot of the higher tier applications, such as the ones for virtualization, for containers, stuff like that, they're handled by third-party apps. They are allowing third-party manufacturers or to install applications on their systems, or have ported applications for third-party software providers downloadable on their own App Center. This goes back to that fluffy app thing, where a lot of the time when you buy a platform, you are buying a combined hardware and software solution. And although they do support Btrfs, which is great, snapshots, lower resource consumption with those snapshots being generated, there's still that feeling where a lot of the core modern applications beyond that of your traditional, I want to listen to music, I want to watch video and look at my photos, after that a lot of the higher tier stuff seemingly gets handed over to third-party developers and their applications, which isn't for everyone. And the minute that happens, the whole point of a NAS, where the NAS is a closed system, you are choosing to have a data relationship with Asustor, kind of goes out the window a little bit when a lot of the more modern core applications utilize third-party apps. And again, a number of you are quite pleased, I'm sure, about third-party app utilization, because it means you get to port over your existing infrastructure a lot more fluidly. But I would have liked a better halfway point between first and third party, where at the moment it feels very 70-30, 60-40 if I want to be charitable, in favor of third-party app developers. The third thing you need to know about Asustor, which if it's not already apparent should be by a big degree, is they do seemingly prioritize hardware over software. When you buy a lot of their solutions, they do bring a lot to the table. You see a lot of very good hardware options, particularly in their newest generation of Lockastor, the 2 and the 4. That is just a great little device with 2.5 GBE, Btrfs, Hdmi 2.0, Nvme Ssd Caching, latest generation of SATA hard drive support. There's so much good hardware there And more when you look at their solutions, although they do talk about ADM and they talk about that gaming streaming application, they talk about their mobile applications too, and they are making strides with that software. There's no avoiding it that when you spend money on an Asustor NAS, you do get that feeling that you are paying for the hardware, not the software. They do seemingly give personal priority to that hardware when you are buying their devices, which in the short term is bloody fantastic if you're going to use your third-party apps. But if you are going to use your first-party tools, or you do want to interact with the brand's own applications with your third-party hardware, you may be left a little lacking. Another thing, and this is more about their modern portfolio of solutions, they have got one of the smallest ranges of hardware currently available. Now, that is not strictly true. If you look at their entire range, you know, from the last 4 or 5 years, a lot of their solutions are still purchasable, the hardware and the software. But in terms of modern choices, and a lot of people when they do buy a NAS solution don't really want to buy anything. If it's a brand new solution they're buying and they're paying retail, you don't really want anything more than a year or two old, really. In that sense, there's not a vast array of solutions. Now, that is something a number of you may take positively or negatively. A number of you may think, I don't want a huge number of NASs to choose from. It's confusing. I want a thing that does the job, and I don't want to spend my whole life looking at an entire compendium of model numbers. I'm talking to you, QNAP. But on the other hand, there's a lot of you out there that want to leverage your spend. You want to say, well, I've got this much to spend. I've got $1,000 or $2,000 to spend. I want to spend that much on hard drives. I want to spend that much on memory. I want to spend that much on CPU. Having a smaller range doesn't allow you sufficient scope to leverage your budget accordingly to where you want to spend it. And you will often be lost looking at the range and going, well, I'm looking at 10 solutions here and none of them seem perfect. So I'm either going to have to compromise or spend more on stuff that I'm not going to use. A larger range would solve that. Not a significantly higher range, just another 20-30% at best would be great. But the last thing about Asustor that's worth bearing in mind, and this is more about a worldwide thing, I talk about them a lot. I talk about them in conjunction with brands like Synology and QNAP quite a lot, but in terms of market share, they don't have as much as those two brands, and that does go for global. So when you are purchasing Asustor NASs, do know that they've got fewer worldwide offices than a number of brands out there in terms of network attached storage. They're still very prominent. They still have offices in a number of locations, but they do not have the worldwide presence of some of the bigger brands. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You don't really want to buy into a lot of smoke and mirrors with a lot of brands. You don't want to go out of your way to just go, oh, they're a big brand, they must be good, because that's just not true a lot of the time. But a lot of you, when you buy a solution, want to know that the brand you're buying from has some form of presence in the country you are in. Something a bit more formal, be it for technical support, be it for advice, or just generally so you can talk to the brand, and particularly for you business users. And Asustor doesn't have the worldwide presence of a number of brands out there. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is something I think a number of high-end business users should know, because a lot of you, it will factor into your buying decision. And otherwise you will end up feeling like they should have a presence and they don't, and therefore you feel weirdly deceived, even though Asustor have not tried to deceive you on this. But these have been the reasons or things that you should know before you buy an Asustor NAS. I still love them as a brand. I still think they bring an excellent product to the market. And I've done a number of videos on them and compared them very favourably, I would say, against Synology and QNAP in those results. They've got a lot of hardware inside and they do bring a lot to the party. Often bringing you features in hardware that you are just not getting for the same price point from QNAP or Synology. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Click like if you did, because it helps me know what videos you guys like, and click subscribe to learn more. Check out my before you buys on the other brands as well, so you can be a lot more informed. Remember, these videos are not about talking you out of buying a NAS. These are just here to help you know what you are buying, because how often do you buy a thing and then get buyer's regret? This helps you understand each of these NAS brands, not only for their successes, but also for their failures. Because I think, where's the grey? You get a lot of black, a lot of white. We want the grey. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.